Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about a contentious issue that's arisen regarding Anthony Joshua. And when I say contentious, I don't mean controversial in the sense that something terrible has happened or anything like that, but a lot of people are talking about it. And what I'm more interested in is what this says about the mindset of Anthony Joshua as we approach a potential rematch against OLEKSANDR USYK, a fight, of course, where the date has yet to be announced, so we don't even really know what's going on with that. That's still up in the air. But everyone's expecting the fight to occur. They're both in training for it. And so what does this tell us about his mindset? Well, what has allegedly occurred is that some university students at Loughborough University, and I've covered their faces here for illegal reasons, not that they're particularly visible anyway, but these students allegedly were hanging outside of a university dorm window and they were hurling abuse at Anthony Joshua. They were heckling him, telling him that Tyson Fury would knock him out, that he wanted nothing to do with Tyson Fury, and so on and so forth. And profanities were used, according to one newspaper's source. Anthony Joshua raced upstairs. He hit the buzzer. Somebody let him in. He raced upstairs and he said, "Remember, you're running your mouth, because when I bring people up here and start cracking your glass jaws, none of you will like it. When your jaws start breaking and people start chasing you out of this uni, none of you will like it. Watch your mouths, because you don't know who you're talking to sometimes. All that public eye BS, I ain't into all that." So Anthony Joshua quite clearly threatening, really, some university, and I've put kids in quotation marks in the title of this video, because you have to understand something. It's easy to portray these lot as just kids, right? But for them to be at university, they're anywhere between, 18 and 22 years old, depending on the year they're in. Have they stayed on to do a master's and all that? Anywhere between 18 and 22. You're not really a kid, right? I mean, a lot of these students, a lot of these kids are out there fighting for the right to vote. You have some people, of course, with something to gain out of it, saying that 16-year-olds should even be allowed to vote and stuff like that. Well, this is the thing. If you're mature enough to be able to decide the trajectory of your country, you're old enough to decide to go to war, you're old enough to decide to drink alcohol and gamble and get a mortgage and pay taxes after you get a job and stuff like that, well, then surely you're mature enough to understand that there are consequences for your actions. So my aim here is not essentially to portray these kids, so to speak, as victims in any way. When we're talking about the moral aspect of what we're seeing here, it is not unfair to say that you can understand why Anthony Joshua is losing his temper with these people. And I say losing his temper loosely, because although there's a threat there, he's actually quite calm. Okay, it doesn't look like he's about to lose control. He's calm and he's putting his kids in their places. But is it the right thing to do? Dominique Samuels tweeted to say Anthony Joshua seriously stomped up to a student accommodation flat to confront students who's heckled him about apparently being too scared to fight Tyson Fury. Like, come on, you're a boxer, you've got millions. Why are you even bothered what a few puny students have to say? It's so weird and screams insecurity. Now, a lot of people took offense to what Dominique has said. And to be honest with you, although from a moral perspective, I understand Anthony Joshua. We all have bad days, right? On another given day, he would have looked at him and he would have looked him up and down and said to him, "Are you being serious? Look at you. You're built like an estrogen oozing fairy from Peter Pan. Like, what are you chatting about, Tinkerbell? Get back in your room. You don't know anything about fighting." But on this particular day, he may have been in a bad mood for whatever reason and he reacted. He did not overstep a mark. This wasn't a case like an Eric Cantona type situation for the football fans out there, where a Crystal Palace fan was heckling him, swore at him, and he went and threw a flying kick into the crowd. This wasn't even a Mike Tyson situation recently, where some passengers were being very rude to him and insulting to him and he ended up punching one of them in the head. It's not one of those scenarios, right? He is more controlled here. He's simply, in the eyes of many people, teaching them a lesson. He's teaching them the lesson that there are consequences for your actions, and that if you're going to run your mouths, one day you are going to potentially get hurt. So many people would say he's actually doing these guys a favor. But the reason Dominique also has a good point is because some people have been saying things like, what does money have to do with it? Why do you have to bring up his bank balance? One of the reasons the bank balance does matter is because of what Anthony Joshua could face to lose. I'm not talking about from a moral perspective about whether they deserve to be spooked by Anthony Joshua, whether they deserve to be put in their place. I ain't talking about that. What I'm talking about is the potential consequences of AJ's own decision making. Let's say he did rock upstairs and one of these little idiots decided that they were emboldened by the sugar rush they got from their lavender chai tea lattes and their encouragement from their other estrogen-using friends. They decided that they were going to challenge Anthony Joshua. Yeah, I'm going to say what I want to you. What are you going to do about it? Maybe one of them even pushes AJ or puts his hands on AJ or threatens AJ in some way because there's a girl there, right? And he wants to act like a tough guy. And AJ puts him in his place, just gives him a little slap, gives him a push, does what Mike Tyson did recently on an aeroplane where he started giving him a couple of thumps in the head. What is going to then happen to Anthony Joshua from a monetary perspective? Financially, he's going to end up paying an awful lot. And that's the least of his worries potentially if it ends up going to court, if he does any sort of damage to the kid. Additionally to that, you have to also understand that he's made a lot of his money through sponsorships. And with that comes a certain responsibility in the way you behave. Now listen, don't get me wrong. He hasn't overstepped the mark. He hasn't put his hands on anybody. Nonetheless, a sponsorship deal could end if he loses his persona. Now, as a boxer, that might not matter, but financially, that's going to be a sting in the tail. Now, he's not thinking along those lines in that moment. In that moment, he wants to put them in their place. He wants to teach them some respect. I get that. I understand that. But what Dominique is saying here is that you ultimately have to be bigger than that when you're in a position that you're in. And it does scream insecurity in some sense. I get what she's saying, because ultimately, if Anthony Joshua was told when he was flying high, before Andy Ruiz, before Alexander Usyk, if somebody had said to him, oh, Charles Martin will knock you out, he would have laughed, right? Like, yeah, all right then. But when it's Tyson Fury, why is there this reaction? In other words, is he angry that the kids were rude? Or is he angry that he's losing what he had in terms of his public image? The darling of British boxing. People are now mocking AJ. There was a time when AJ was loved everywhere he went. And Tyson Fury, make no mistake, jumped on this instantly. As you all know, he loves to troll Anthony Joshua. And he tweeted the article, rather he Instagrammed the article. And he said, I have this effect on the best of them. In other words, just the mention of Tyson Fury makes a fighter lose his mind. So where does this put Anthony Joshua mentally and psychologically moving into the Alexander Usyk fight? You see, is he in that position whereby he's mentally ready for war? Is he a soldier in training? And so as a result of that, he's on edge. And so when somebody tilts him over the edge, he's going to react differently to when he's not in camp. Is that what we're seeing here? Is it merely a case of AJ being in that place where he's ready? Or are we seeing a scenario here where Anthony Joshua is rattled? He's concerned about everything that's come his way regarding Alexander Usyk. He feels like a animal that's cornered. If you've ever seen an animal that's cornered, it could be a meek animal, it could be a cat, it could be anything. I've seen a cat recently, in fact, cornered by a fox, and the cat starts hissing away. It was petrified, but it was hissing because it knows it's at threat, so it's ready to fight. It's a fight or flight response. Is that what we're seeing here from a psychological perspective? Is Anthony Joshua feeling threatened, his status threatened, and now he's ready for war with everybody, but in a manner that is not healthy, in a manner where there's nervous energy going on? Is that what we're seeing? So is he ready for war or just rattled? Let me know what you think. Please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, notifications button. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.